All right, thanks very much and welcome back. This is a live edition of Ask the Governor from the Governor's office at the State Capitol Complex in Hartford. I'm Chief Political Correspondent Mark Davis. He's Governor Dannel Malloy. Let's get back to more of your questions. Let's see. This next question is from Jean. She called our Voice of the People hotline to weigh in on pre-K. Let's listen.
I'm concerned about preschool space expansions and education. I just want them kept out of the public schools. Public schools are failing our kindergarten through 12th grade children. Please do not put 3- and 4-year-olds in there. There are a lot of great community programs, local nursery schools, churches and others who run nursery schools and preschools and childcare that are doing a hell of a job, should be recognized for it. Let's keep the 3- and 4-year-olds in the community where they belong and not make it some type of political statement that they would go into the public schools so that they get more money and don't do the job again. Thank you.
I would bet that you're not going to agree with her.
No, actually, I don't disagree with her. You know, in Stamford, we actually took a lot of our preschool seats out of traditional schools and built separate centers for it, 2 of them, in fact. And that was part of trying to make a pre-kindergarten learning experience universally accessible. Now, we used a not-for-profit provider of that service that had a 100-year track record in Stamford, but it wasn't a Board of Education-run program. So I think what you have to do, what we shouldn't do, is to assume that the government should own education from age 3 or age 4. What we have to do is build a system where we make sure that no one is denied access to quality pre-kindergarten learning experience because of their financial circumstances. That's very different than building our own universal system.
All right, let's get to our next question. This is from Vince in Granby. He says, instead of trying to force all schools in the state to accept your proposals for educational reform, why not try a pilot program? That sounds like government speak. I know we use that up here all the time. Of a half a dozen low-performing schools consisting proving research-based initiatives as well as parent involvement in order to find the best approach to close the achievement gap.
Well, we shouldn't ignore what's working in other states, or for that matter, what's working in our own state. We have urban environments that are failing 40 to 70% of their students. We have the largest achievement gap in the country and have had it for 13 years. We can look at what's working in some of our own urban centers that have graduation rates at individual schools or success rates that are far beyond the district-wide average. Those are programs we should be replicating. We can look at what other states have done. As I mentioned, Massachusetts has been at this for about 10 years with really dramatic results. For instance, about 20 years ago, Connecticut had the #1 graduation rate. We are now in 7th place, and we're projecting to go to 12th place in a relatively short period of time. We're not doing what's proving itself in other states. And this idea that this is not a research-based argument that we're making, or that a 163-page document is in fact not based on research, is just one of these word games that people are playing to try to win a particular point. Now, let me drill down on one point. With respect to one of the proposals, we've said we should look at the 25 lowest performing schools in the state and give the Commissioner of Education some ability to change those schools. Now, every one of those schools has been at the bottom for 5 years or more. Every one of those schools is failing their students in the classroom. And what we've said is we can begin that process with less than 25 schools. So we've already offered to do that, quite frankly. And so hopefully we'll make progress.
All right, next question. This is a caller who's very upset about the disparities between magnet schools and general public schools. Let's listen in. This is Ann in North Haven.
I think the magnet public schools versus the public neighborhood schools is very unfair. The magnet schools are state-of-the-art with 100% parental involvement, while the neighborhood schools are unlike them. The teachers have a harder time with discipline and also with parental involvement, and then the teachers get blamed for not performing. The magnet schools should be used for high schools so that all the children could pick a career, and this might entice children to stay in school more. It's an unfair system between the magnet schools and the neighborhood schools are intolerable.
Okay, there's a lot there, and we got 30 seconds to the break.
This person just said the neighborhood schools are intolerable. I mean, she's making the point that if we have intolerable schools, we should go to a different model of managing those schools. We know what works. We know longer school days work. We know longer school years work. We know higher levels of parental involvement work. We know that accountability works. We know that supervising more closely staffs works. We know what works. We just don't replicate it. And although she was arguing about one type of school versus another, the real point that she made was that the neighborhood schools that she's familiar with are failing the students.
All right, we'll have more with Governor Malloy coming up, but let's check in once again with Steve.
All right, thanks so much, Mark. We have clouds and a few showers in the forecast.
We're watching News 8 at 5:30.
And this is Ask the Governor. I'm Chief Political Correspondent Mark Davis, live at the Governor's office at the State Capitol Complex in Hartford. He's Governor Dannel Malloy. Let's get to another question, Governor. Let's see, this is from Amanda in Monroe. She says, Bridgeport is one of the largest school districts in the state. Why hasn't the governor brought his education reform tour to us? Does he plan to do so in the future? And if so, when? You've done, what, 9 of them so far?
She's in Monroe, and she wants me to bring it to Bridgeport.
Well, that's close to her.
Yeah. We're all over the state. You know that. We'll be down there. I think we have something scheduled in Bridgeport, or getting something scheduled. I'm going to be doing this right through the end of the session. So, and you know, even a day like today, I'm doing school-related events. Went out to E.O. Smith to kick off a math competition with 46 schools present. I'm going to be stopping in at a Bloomfield Arts Festival, school arts festival later tonight. I'm going everywhere I can to talk about education reform because Connecticut is falling far behind its neighboring states, soon to fall far behind many of the states in other parts of the country that we used to beat the pants off of. But because we're standing still and because they're moving, we're really, you know, pretty far behind right now. You know, we have the largest achievement gap of all 50 states and have had that achievement gap for 13 years, and it's 10 points higher than some of our neighboring states.
I think that's one of the other questions, but we have to take a break, and we'll get to our final question for Governor Malloy coming up. Stay with us. Okay, welcome back. Governor, let's get to our final question. This is from Frank in Naugatuck. He emailed us saying, don't get me wrong, I love my kids' teachers, but isn't it obvious we are enriching our educator administration by pouring money into a public school system that diverts money away for perks from learning essentials like classes, books, and paper? Why shouldn't we then allow for a voucher system for all parents to divert their children to private education such as Catholic schools?
Well, you know, I've not been a supporter of vouchers, and I'm probably not going to change. But I understand the frustration that's out there, particularly when you have people yelling and screaming that, you know, you can't do anything about education because it's parents' fault. But then we don't want to empower parents to take their kids out of public schools and send them elsewhere. It's an interesting dichotomy. What I want to see is a great public educational system. And I believe that this 163-page drafted bill that we presented to the legislature does just that. It makes sure that we have a public education system that we could be proud of. And then, quite frankly, if we don't begin this reformation process soon, we're going to be so far behind other states that the complaint that I heard so much last year, where employers are actually telling me they can't find talent in Connecticut, is going to mean that we have no economic growth.
Governor, thanks for doing this again.
Thank you.
Ask the Governor, Governor Dannel Malloy, and thank you so much for all of your questions. I'm Mark Davis. Have a good night. Now here's News 8 at 6 with Ann and Keith.
Mark, thank you. Fired up over a firing range. There's a